Hello learners, welcome to Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University. We are discussing the unit 2 of our paper Fundamentals of Sociology. Now let us continue our discussion with scope of sociology, and as we discussed under nature of sociology, we have to remember that sociology is a social science, it is a cumulative science, it is also an applied science which can be tested, and the proper solutions for social problems can also be provided. Now when we talk about the scope of sociology, we can understand basically scope is what? Scope is the subject matter of sociology. So when we try to understand the subject matter of sociology, basically there are two schools of thought. One is formalistic or specialistic school and another is synthetic school. So these two schools of thought, they view sociology in a slightly different dimension. Much of difference is not there, only difference in terms of how you look at the subject. So when we talk about formalistic school or specialistic school, the basic idea connected with sociology is we are seeing sociology as a very specialized, distinct science which should focus exclusively and on specific aspects of social relationships only. It should talk about certain forms of social relationships and not on their content, and it strongly advocates a kind of division of labor among social sciences, and that is what makes the scope of sociology limited under this particular school of thought. Now there are many contributors who have spoken extensively about the formalistic or specialistic school like George Simmel, Small, Weir-Kant and Max Weber. So what is George Simmel talking here? George Simmel says that sociology should study only the basic forms of the social interaction. It should focus on patterns like competition, subordination, hierarchy, division of labor, and it should also emphasize on studying the structure of relationships and not the hardcore subject matter. And at the same time, what is Max Weber trying to tell us? Max Weber is saying that sociology should study social action and behavior, and it emphasizes on interpretative understanding. Interpretative understanding means you are trying to interpret, you are trying to give a meaning to a particular social action which is taking place. And apart from these dimensions, the specialistic school or formalistic school, it also tries to tell us that sociology should provide a kind of a conceptual clarity to other social sciences. However, the school also has been criticized for certain reasons, like other social sciences also study social relationships, and separation of form and content of social reality is actually not a very practical idea. So scope of sociology becomes very narrow in this particular school of thought, and modern trend, the contemporary trend of social sciences or of sociology, it always encourages a kind of a interdisciplinary approach. Now let us try to understand what comes under synthetic school. In synthetic school of scope of sociology, we are seeing sociology as a general and a kind of a comprehensive science which focuses the various dimensions of society, and it studies society as a whole. So in this, the scope of sociology is encyclopedic in nature. It is very integrative in nature and also broad at the same time. So in this, two very prominent thinkers who have supported this school of thought are Emile Durkheim and Maurice Ginsburg. So Emile Durkheim categorizes the scope of sociology into social morphology, which studies the territorial aspects of the society, social physiology, where we focus on the functions of society, and general sociology, where we are trying to study the general social laws and facts. Then what is Maurice Ginsburg talking? Maurice Ginsburg is also talking about social morphology. He is also talking about social control. Social control, which you all know, my dear friends, is of two types: formal social control and informal social control. And social processes like cooperation, competition, accommodation, assimilation, and social pathology. Pathology is basic, social pathology basically is study of social problems. For example, if you have any disease in your body, where do we go for testing? We go to a pathological lab, which helps us to diagnose what is the problem. So similarly, social pathology tries to understand the various social problems like poverty, crime, unemployment, juvenile delinquency. So Morris Ginsburg is focusing on these four components: morphology, social control, social processes, and social pathology. In synthetic school, we will see that the scope of sociology is very, very broad in terms of the fact that sociology is focusing on social processes, groups, institutions, social changes, stratification and control. Social problems are also being studied, and society is being seen as a kind of a interconnected system, not isolated parts. Every part is interconnected, and change in one part will definitely impact the other aspects also. For example, if there is change in economy, there will be change in other aspects of social living also. So when we try to summarize the nature and scope of sociology, basically we are studying sociology in terms of groups, social relationships, focus on interaction. We are also trying to focus on the organized behavior. We are trying to understand the various social institutions like family, marriage, kinship. We are also focusing on economy. We are also focusing on political system. Then sociology is also trying to explain us that how individual behavior is shaped by social interaction. So when we basically try to focus on sociology in terms of nature and scope, we are only trying to understand that how the nature and scope of sociology is evolving over a period of time. Of course, in nature, our focus whether sociology is a science or it is not a science, and from time to time, with the evolution of better technological developments helping us to have more scientific methods to understand society, definitely the nature of sociology also is becoming more and more scientific in nature. Similarly, with the expansion of the sociological concerns, with the onset of new kind of technology, now for example, we have new technology called as AI. So as a student of sociology, we should be in a position to understand how is artificial intelligence impacting the human understanding, human learning, human education, human services, human facilities, because as you know, AI is impacting health, AI is impacting education, AI is impacting social media, AI is impacting our interactions to a great extent. So the scope of sociology is of course dynamic in nature, and any genuine sociologist or any committed student of sociology should always focus on this dynamic aspect of sociology and how society is undergoing change, and that is where we need to bring in not only the founding fathers of sociology in understanding the scope, but also on concentrating on new dimensions of social understanding. So if Emile Durkheim speaks about general sociology, social pathology, how that social pathology is can be understood in contemporary times. As a student of sociology, we should be in a position to focus on that kind of a scope. So far we have discussed about definition, nature and scope of sociology. You are requested to explore further on what can be the other dimensions which we can include under scope of sociology, because please remember, scope of sociology is not static, it is dynamic in nature.